The National Hockey League pushes gender ideology, and the Colorado shooter identifies as non-binary and uses pronouns they, them. All of that and more here on the Bald Brad Show. Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. It is Wednesday, November 23rd. And as always, support the show by hitting that like and subscribe button, as well as leaving your opinions in the comment section below regarding anything that we cover in today's episode. Your help and support would be greatly appreciated. Many of you might be wondering, Brad, why are we doing an afternoon episode rather than a morning episode? Well, folks, I am sort of under the weather. I wanted to sleep in just a little bit here, but I also recognize that the left aren't sleeping. The left are not stopping and trying to destroy this country from the inside out, which is why I want to make sure that we try to get the content and the news that you need to know about each and every single day, which is why we're going to do an afternoon episode here. And that leads me into our lead story of the day regarding the National Hockey League putting out a tweet that's pushing this gender ideology nonsense. And it is not sitting well with fans whatsoever, folks. They are getting raked through the coals on Twitter. Now, I played ice hockey for 25 years. I played in Canada. I played college. I referee ice hockey. So I'm very in tune with what's been going on from the youth level all the way to the NHL and how it was only a matter of time before something like this happened. But what I will say is the National Hockey League is probably one of the most patriotic, conservative leagues out there, at least sports, meaning hockey itself, in the world. And I'll give you a prime example before we get into the tweet itself. The National Hockey League, all the way down to even minor level hockey, meaning pros, to youth, is you will have coaches, and this has all been recorded in locker rooms, from the NHL to the minor league hockey, that if you're not going to stand for the national anthem, don't even bother getting dressed. This is to NHL players, to minor players, to college players. You don't want to stand for the national anthem, don't even bother getting dressed because you're not going to play a single minute. You're not going to hear that in the NFL. You're not going to hear that in the NBA. They're wearing their bracelets, their headbands, don't stop racism on the back of their helmet. Even though I'm for stopping racism, I don't like it. But sports is supposed to be an opportunity to where we can get away from the politics of the world, the craziness, and just sit down with a nice cold brew or, a glass of scotch or whatever it may be that you like to drink and eat, and just watch sports. Watch grown men beat the crap out of each other. That's hockey for you. It's not this gender ideology, put your hair in pigtails and nice little ribbons, go, let's go play some hockey. That's not the sport. But this is stuff that the NHL wants to push, and they're getting major backlash. So here's a tweet. The NHL is proud to support this past weekend's Team Trans Draft Tournament in Middleton, Wisconsin. This was the first tournament comprised entirely of transgender and non-binary players, with around 80 folks participating. And if you can see, they got pigtails and all this stuff, and there's a nice little, let's see if we can click on it here, nice little image of We Heart Trans, Teams Trans. And this is where the NHL goes, and this is where the NHL wants to push their gender ideology upon their fans, which, like I said, is not the crowd that you want to push this towards by any means. So someone responded to the NHL's tweet, and we got a bunch of them for you, by writing, "So men playing on women's team, question mark?" The NHL replied by claiming trans women are women, trans men are men, non-binary identity is real. They are not catering to their base whatsoever. And there's been times where hockey fans just will not show up. I mean, I remember when Gary Bateman, the leader, the commissioner of the NHL, pissed a lot of fans off. They're like, we're just not going to show up to the games. And the owners of the franchises got super upset because he pissed a lot of them off. This could have massive ramifications for the league. We just won't show up. We won't watch your stuff. We're not going to put up with this crap. If you want to indoctrinate children and youth in our school system, if you want to inject all this stuff in our sports, we won't have any of it. We won't show up. You're going to lose money. And that's going to be the end of that. I would also like to point out, I know this is obvious to all of you, but trans women are just biological men who identify as women, while transgender men are biological women who identify as men. That's all it is. But this is stuff they want to push. Here's Ben Shapiro saying, amazing to watch sports leagues that rely on extraordinary performance by biological men, as well as the viewership of disproportionately male audiences, parrot the idiotic anti-biological garbage of the woke contraire, forgive me. So they don't know. Somebody had to sit down, right? In like a room with a bunch of people that are execs of the NHL go, this is the message we want to push. This is exactly what we want to do. Our base is just going to love it. They're going to absolutely love it. Shapiro goes on to say, if this is true, why aren't there any trans men in the NHL? They're real men, after all. Must be terrible and vicious discrimination. Again, bear with me, folks. I am sick, so I'm going to lose my voice here in a moment. In reality, what Ben is saying, look, why are there not any women in the NHL? If they are biological women, but they are identifying as men, why are they not in the NHL? Put them on the ice and see what happens. And I'll give you an example, because I referee college. I've seen women play college hockey in the ACHA, for example, and normally hit by just a casual hockey hit. Multiple times I've seen this. Fall on the ground crying. You don't see them the next week. They're all bandaged up. They got their arm in a sling and everything like that because they couldn't take a normal hit. Because these men are huge. They are men. There is a difference biologically between men and women. You put a casual woman that's been playing hockey her entire life, just a natural woman on that ice, you're never going to see somebody get blown up so hard in their entire life. That's why. And they have no business being there. I'm just going to say it outright. Women do not have any business playing in the NHL. You could play hockey, but you know, if you're a hockey player and you're a woman, you know what's going to happen if you step on that ice with grown men. You know automatically. But the progressive left, that's what they want to see. The progressive left want this stuff. It's so mind-blowing. And the NHL wants to be stupid enough to put it out there for all eyes to see. Quote, the NHL becomes the latest organization to totally debase itself for the sake of pandering to people who aren't their customers and never will be. That's exactly what I just said. And that comes from Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire. Quote, if trans women are women, shouldn't the NHL completely support eliminating the sport being divided by men and women? If there's no biological difference, then only have hockey. No men's hockey, no women's hockey, just hockey. How will that work out? Oh, yes, just men tweeted. That's from David Hooksteed of Outkick. Never heard of him before, but he's not wrong. He's absolutely not wrong. We also have another person here that said, would you like some nonsensical horse pucky with your professional ice sport? NHL was getting ratioed for its denial of reality, so it no longer allowing responses, meaning now you can't even comment on the damn thing because they realize that they screwed up, but they're going to keep it there. They're going to keep it. They don't want to hear what their fans have to say. I hope, for the love of God, there is major backlash here by the NHL because their base doesn't want this. The natural supporters of hockey don't want this. We like watching fights. Can you imagine, just for the sake of this, say they started doing this. They started pushing this narrative. They started putting transgender people on the ice, meaning biological women that are identifying as men, and they go scrap with a guy that's 6'5", 250, just natural bruiser on the ice, known as a fighter. He's fourth line. That's all he does is fight. How do you think that's going to end for that person's face? How do you think that's going to end for that person that's going to get lit up? Not very well. And you know what's going to cause more problems? Because that woman's teammates, even though she identifies as man, that woman's teammates are going to protect them because that's their teammate. That's what we do. We protect. So it's just going to create a lot more chaos. There's going to be disruptions. But let's be honest. Some LGBTQ person in the NHL that somehow got up there on social media and a bunch of them somehow climbed the ranks are now pushing their dumb ideology upon all of us that just want to freaking watch a hockey game. I don't want to see somebody go, oh, end racism, even though I think it's a good idea to end racism. I don't want to see politics in the sports sphere. I want to sit down with my old fashioned. I want to sit down, possibly if I'm outdoors, with a TV outside, with a cigar, a nice whiskey or scotch, and watch the game with the boys and not have to see this stuff interjected. And there's going to be backlash. I'm telling you, if they keep pushing this stuff, if they don't listen to their fans, I guarantee you, we're all just going to sit there and boycott the NHL. I don't need that crap. I'll sit there and watch old hockey in the 90s where guys actually sit there and were rough, tough, bruiser hockey that we don't really even see today. Now it's all finesse. Now it's all foo-foo because the NHL wants to make it more family-friendly according to them. So let me know what you think about this one in the comments below. Is there any NHL fans out there? Because Ben Shapiro actually is not an NHL fan. He's a Major League Baseball fan. I watch it. I played it. I still referee it. I don't like it one whatsoever. And I'm the base. You're talking to the person that sits there and grows up and watches the NHL almost every single day. Let me know in the comments below. Moving into our next story of the day. Oh boy, did the narrative shatter here, folks. The narrative shattered. Now, I'm just going to bring you the facts because I'm still waiting for all the evidence to come out myself. But this is regarding the Colorado shooter that shot up the nightclub. And you saw everybody come out and said, oh, it's a hate crime. CNN, MSNBC, obviously the media came out and capitalized on this. The president of the United States came out and said, oh, we want to do an assault weapons ban because the guy supposedly had a long rifle, but they called it an AR-15 style rifle, which they always have to do. They have to push the AR-15 narrative. And the narrative was that this was a right-winger, hate crime, probably a MAGA supporter, probably a Trump supporter that went in this nightclub because they hate gay people. That was the narrative that they pushed. They wanted it. They wanted it to be that case. I came on and covered it. It's on for everybody to see and said, we don't know what happened. Could it be a hate crime? Maybe. But can we not just wait for the evidence to come out before we start capitalizing on certain things that are or are not facts? But we can't wait to actually legitimize what took place anymore, which used to be what journalism was. You would actually wait. You would just say the facts. Hey, somebody went in and shot up a gay nightclub. And that was pretty much it, because you didn't really have anything else. You maybe had some eyewitnesses come on. Sure, you could talk about that, but you just give the facts. But that's not what the left is about, nor the media about anymore. It's all about capitalizing on a narrative, pushing a specific narrative that obviously goes with the progressive left, Democrat Party, upon everybody else. And so everybody grabs a hold of that. Forget what actually took place, because people are just going to hold on to the initial narrative of it being a MAGA supporter. They're not going to bother actually changing their mind and seeing that this wasn't a MAGA supporter, or at least what it pretends to be now of not being a MAGA supporter. Could it be a non-binary, they, them pronoun individual that is a MAGA supporter? Possibly. But here are the facts as of right now. The 22-year-old suspect who allegedly killed 5 and wounded 17 others after opening fire inside a gay nightclub in Colorado last week identifies as, get this, non-binary and uses they, them pronouns according to court documents. Does this sound like a Trump supporter? I know gay Trump supporters. I know LGBTQ Trump supporters. They don't even do this. They don't even classify themselves as they, them. They don't follow that pronoun narrative. They think it's stupid. I'm not saying that's every MAGA, LGBTQ plus LMNOP soup supporter person, but this does not sound MAGA. We don't know yet. We don't know. Could they be a Trump supporter? Could they be a registered Republican? Maybe. Boy, oh boy, would that be an outlier? But it's possible. I'm just giving you the facts. Just the facts of what we have. The New York Times reported on this whole issue and obtained a new court filing Tuesday night showing public defenders referring to their client as MX. The alleged gunman, who will not be named for Daily Wire and also here on the Ball Brad Show, policy about not giving notoriety to mass killers, opened fire in the nightclub Q in Colorado Springs, which described itself online as an adult-oriented gay and lesbian nightclub. Hosting theme nights such as karaoke, drag shows, and DJs. And again, because they have drag shows there, because I believe they were going to host a drag show, that's why the narrative kind of hopped on of, oh, well, this took place right after they posted that whole thing on Twitter of them hosting a drag show. So somebody got really upset that's a MAGA Trump supporter, and they went in and shot up the place. That was the narrative. I mean, do you realize the loops and kind of the reach that you have to go with on that just to push a narrative? That's the media for you. And then the media can't wonder why nobody trusts them anymore. That's why YouTube outlets are doing well. Just kind of those mom and pop outlets, kind of like the Ball Brad Show. We're doing pretty well. We've only been around not even 2 years yet. We have the Daily Wire. There's a hunger for people to call it the narrative. There's a hunger for people to call it the hypocrisy of the media and the progressive left, which is clearly what they have been doing for quite some time. Obviously before Obama's time, but that's really when it took off. And then how under Trump administration, the media, just their bias and really just seeping through and showing really, really took off. Now it's just plain as day. They don't even care anymore. Police said the suspected gunman entered the venue with a long rifle and immediately began shooting. At least 2 patrons inside the club confronted and stopped the shooter. Just heroes, by the way, absolute heroes. And I mean that, I'm not being sarcastic. I really do mean that. Absolute heroes to have the cojones to go and stop a guy that's shooting up a place. Well done. Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers said their actions clearly saved the lives of obviously many people and was heroic. Absolutely agree. Local media reports that authorities said the shooter faces 5 counts of first-degree murder after deliberation and 5 counts of bias-motivated crime that caused bodily injury. Prosecutors suggested the shooting is considered a hate crime based on the bias-motivated crime charge. Interesting. Again, prosecutors suggested the shooting is considered a hate crime. So even they're jumping the gun on all this stuff. The Associated Press reports that the alleged gunman changed his name just before turning 16 after filing a legal petition in Texas saying he wanted to protect himself from a father with a criminal history, including alleged domestic violence against the suspect's mother. So a guy attacks his mother, clearly has parental issues. I mean, how many times do we have to see a mass shooter with this kind of profile? I mean, it's constant. I don't care about race. The amount of metal you produce has nothing to do with you going and committing a heinous crime like this. It's your upbringing. It's your personal milieu. It's your social environment that has brought you up in a certain way that causes you, or at least creates an effect of you disproportionately having the possibility of creating a crime versus somebody else that grew up in a traditional, conservative, say, household with two mothers, went to church and all those things. That person that went to church, grew up with two parents in the house, and having those conservative, traditional Judeo-Christian values is way less likely to commit this type of crime than somebody that had a dysfunctional parenting in the household, maybe missing a father, maybe missing a mother, domestic violence, beating up their own mother. All these things clearly show signs that you're more likely to statistically have these types of crimes committed by that person with that type of background. The suspect's father was mixed martial arts fighter and pornography performer with a long criminal history, including convictions for battery against the alleged shooter's mother, according to the Associated Press. Just lovely. Apple clearly doesn't fall too far from the tree. Father served 2.5 years in custody for importing marijuana and later violated his conditions while on supervised release by testing positive for illegal steroids. That as well comes from the Associated Press. The El Paso County Sheriff's Office arrested and booked the gunman in June 2021 on 2 counts of felony, menacing, and 3 first-degree kidnapping charges in connection to a bomb threat leading to a standoff at his mother's home in Colorado Springs. Gee, are the signs there just a little bit? Just a little bit? It reminds me of the Christmas parade killings, where the last name Brooks plowed through a bunch of people, and he was sent to jail numerous amounts of times, only to be released numerous amounts of times because the Democrats and the progressive left think that people are just being apprehended and thrown into jail because of racism. Because there's 13% of the population that commits a lot of the crime, not like just disproportionately. If you look at 13% of the population, if you zoom in even 8% of the population, look at black males committing basically 50% of the murders, when that's a disproportion of how much they actually are a proportion of Americans. And the whites predominantly take care of the other 45 to 48% of it, and you have Hispanics and Asians. And a lot of people think by throwing out that statistics, well, you're racist, Brad. No, it's just I'm citing what the stats say for like the last, I don't know, decade plus of the Washington Post, as well as what we have in terms of data from other statistical journals and other sources that you can find. So it's just citing a fact. But what we're seeing here is people are being released from jail because of the progressive left ideology that there's racism out there, and people are just being apprehended and thrown into jail because of racism, that the cops are racist. And so that's what happened to the Brooks that plowed his car in, that he was released multiple times out of jail, a couple times on bail. I think it was $1,000 bail that he met. Should have never happened in the first place, and goes and kills 5 people plus. And similar we have here. Guy has massive charges and it's just let out. And this is what happens. According to the sheriff's office, deputies responded to a report by the shooter's mother alleging he was threatening to cause harm to her with a homemade bomb, multiple weapons, and ammunition. Authorities did not find any explosives in the home. Howard Black, a spokesman for the 4th Judicial District Attorney's Office, declined to comment to NPR on whether any charges were pursued. Oh, of course. Doesn't want to comment because they might have screwed up. They need to sit there and have their meetings and make sure everything's in order here. Left-wing corporate media pundits and politicians have attempted to link the mass shooting last weekend to those who oppose progressive social agendas in the United States. So because that you go against the progressive social agendas, that makes you somebody that's likely to commit a mass shooting because you go against the agenda. I go against the agenda. I think this guy's insane. I think this guy is evil. I think how clear do you have to be with these leftists for them to get it through their head that you don't like this as a conservative Republican, that you hate this type of stuff? They don't understand it. They just think, oh, well, because you're against the whole narrative that we're pushing, you must be for this type of stuff. It's disgusting, that type of narrative. It really is. When people go shoot up a congressional baseball game because they were a Bernie supporter, I don't blame Bernie Sanders for having a certain viewpoint and that person taking in that viewpoint, jumbling it up in their mind and thinking that it's okay to go shoot up a congressional baseball hearing. I don't blame Bernie for it. I think the guy was crazy. I don't even blame progressives. I don't even blame Democrats for that. The guy was insane. So I'm not going to blame the narrative that the progressive left are pushing, even though there is a narrative out there of go and find Trump supporters in restaurants and all that stuff by Maxine Waters. I mean, there has been certain things that have been pushed, but even so, even with the Democrats pushing that narrative, I still don't blame them. And I still don't blame the progressive left for what crazy, evil people do in mass shootings at all. I know some people don't agree with that, but we're authentic here on the Bald Brad Show. I think if somebody's going to take a certain thing and go to an extreme like that and do something like that, they're evil. There's something wrong in their head. Clearly a wrong upbringing. But I wanted to make sure that I give you the latest news here on what's going on with the shooter, because the narrative has changed. I mean, CNN literally didn't know what to say when this came out. They literally sat there and basically silent, going, like what we see from Karine Jean-Pierre, just completely stunned, because in their mind, they thought it was going to be a Trump supporter. In their mind, they wanted it to be a Republican. In their mind, they wanted it to be a cis white gendered male that was a MAGA Trump supporter with Trump flags flying on the lawns, whole Trump truck, right, lifted and everything like that. That's what they wanted. And it turned out it wasn't. And so their whole narrative in their mind and what they've been pushing is completely exploded, and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to answer it. They don't know how to deal with this. And so on air, when they find this out, they're completely silent. And what are they going to go do? They're going to go meet in their back room after, kind of figure out the new narrative, the new spin on this, and completely change everything to make it seem like, oh, well, it's not that bad. Let's go and talk about let's just talk about the facts then. Let's just talk about the facts rather than the narrative. That's how it will change. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining me here on the Bald Brad Show. I apologize for having a late episode out for all of you, but hey, we got an episode nonetheless in. As always, support the Bald Brad Show by hitting that like and subscribe button. And I'll see you tomorrow here on the Bald Brad Show.